Yellowstone Valley. Dawn. The first light filters through the trees, casting long shadows across the dew-soaked grass. Near the tree line, a female bear lies motionless, her body pressed into the earth. Her fur is damp from the night's chill, heavy with dew. Beside her, two small cubs shift uneasily, their soft movements the only sign of life in the stillness. Their little bodies nudge against her, seeking warmth and comfort, but their mother does not stir. The rangers, who have been tracking her for days, approach cautiously, their eyes scanning the scene with quiet urgency. One of them, Elias, lowers his binoculars. His breath is slow and measured. "She hasn't moved all night," he murmurs to his partner, his voice barely above the rustling of the leaves. The cubs press closer to their mother, but the rangers can see the concern in their small eyes. Something is wrong. There is no sign of danger nearby, no tracks, no disturbance in the ground, just the calm of the morning settling over them. Still, Elias feels the weight of the silence in his chest. If the mother bear is dead, the cubs will be vulnerable, alone. Without her, they would not survive long in the wild. The wind shifts, carrying with it the faint scent of pine and damp earth. The rangers hold their breath. There is no immediate sign of injury, no visible wounds, but the stillness is unnerving. Bears are not often so motionless for long. Elias steps forward slowly, his boots pressing gently into the soft earth. His partner follows, keeping a few steps behind, giving the animal space to adjust. They are careful not to startle her. A soft rustle comes from the cubs as one of them climbs over its mother's back. Its tiny paws press against the fur, testing for warmth, looking for a sign of life. The other cub follows, their movements soft and unsure. The mother's chest does not rise. The air is thick with the tension of their uncertainty. Elias kneels a few feet away, watching closely. The bear's eyes are closed, her body still, but there is a faint rise and fall of her sides. A slow, shallow breath. It is enough to reassure them for the moment. But it is unclear how long she can remain in this state. Her body is no longer the strong, powerful figure it once was. It is frail, vulnerable. The cubs, sensing the change, begin to nudge their mother again, more urgently this time. Their small bodies move in restless circles around her, their tiny whines cutting through the air. Elias glances at his partner, his voice low. "We have to be careful. If she wakes too fast, she might panic." His partner nods, watching the cubs closely. The mother bear is the key. If she recovers, the cubs will have a chance. If she doesn't, their survival is in question. Minutes pass, each one stretching into the next, the tension building slowly in the cool morning air. The cubs press closer to their mother, their movements becoming more frantic. They do not understand the danger, but they feel the absence of warmth, the absence of care. Their tiny bodies huddle together, searching for comfort. The rangers stay still, their eyes never leaving the bear. Time moves slowly in the silence, a breath, then another. The mother bear shifts. Her head tilts slightly and her eyes open, the faintest glint of recognition in them. For a moment she seems to look directly at Elias, then back to her cubs. The shift is so subtle that Elias is unsure if it is real, but it is enough to bring a quiet hope. She is alive, for now. The cubs move in closer, nuzzling against her side, their soft sounds filling the space between them and the rangers. Slowly, the mother raises her head and shifts slightly, taking in the air around her. It is a fragile movement, one that speaks of exhaustion, of strength barely hanging on. If she wakes fully, they will have a chance. If not, they'll have to decide how to move forward. The risk is clear. Without their mother, the cubs will not survive alone in the wild. The air in Yellowstone Valley remains cool, the sun's early light casting soft shadows over the ground. The rangers have moved closer. Now, crouching a few feet from the motionless female bear, the cubs are no longer as still as they were earlier. They shift restlessly against their mother, their small cries piercing the quiet morning. One cub climbs over the mother's body, its tiny paws pressing gently into her fur. It pauses for a moment, then shifts again, looking for warmth, for reassurance. Its brother follows, climbing awkwardly over her side, its claws scraping softly against her heavy coat. Neither of the cubs has left their mother's side. Elias watches them with quiet concern. Their soft whining fills the space between the rangers and the bear, a desperate sound that makes his chest tighten. He knows the stakes. Without their mother, the cubs will not survive on their own, but he's unsure if the bear will recover. Her stillness, the faint rise and fall of her chest indicates that she's still alive, but how much strength remains in her body? Her injury, though not visible at a glance, is evident in the way her head remains low and the way her body refuses to lift fully. The cubs nudge at her again, each one moving closer, their little heads pushing against her fur. They whimper softly, their cries echoing through the valley, the sound of their distress hanging in the morning air. The rangers hold their breath, unsure how long they should wait. The mother bear's body is a barricade between them and her cubs, her fur still warm despite the weight of the night. Elias slowly shifts his position, careful not to startle her or cause the cubs to panic. The cubs' movements become more urgent now, climbing over their mother again, testing her body for any sign of life. They sniff her and nudge her with their noses. The whimpers are louder now, almost frantic, as though they understand the fragility of the moment. Their small bodies, still so young, seem to be reaching for a warmth that's slipping further away. Elias whispers to his partner, his voice barely audible, "She's been here all night. Something's kept her still." There's a truth in his words, the knowledge that the mother bear has fended off whatever threat had approached, yet she hasn't moved. The rangers are unsure what danger the bear has faced, but her protective stance tells them that she has done everything in her power to keep her cubs safe. The stakes are clear. If she doesn't wake fully, the cubs will be vulnerable to predators. If she remains still, they will have to decide how to move forward. The morning continues to unfold, the quiet punctuated by the cubs' cries. The rangers keep their distance, giving the mother bear time to recover. But with every passing minute, they understand more deeply the tension of this moment. The cubs are beginning to move further from her body now, their small heads swiveling around the valley as they look for something more, anything more. They are too young to understand the danger that looms over them, too small to fend for themselves. The soft cries from their mouths are all that remain. Elias notices the cubs' movements becoming more erratic as the minutes tick by. One cub, more curious than the other, begins to venture further into the grass, its small steps unsteady. The other cub hesitates, looking back at its mother, before following cautiously. Elias watches them, a sharp pang of concern cutting through him. If the mother does not wake soon, the cubs will wander too far. If the mother cannot protect them, they will become easy prey for anything lurking in the distance. The cubs return to their mother's side once again, pushing against her, their small bodies shivering against the cold morning air. They nudge her gently as if begging her to rise, to move, to give them what they need most: safety. Elias watches this silent plea and knows that, for the cubs, the only hope lies in the survival of their mother. The rangers hold their breath, waiting for something, anything, to change. The morning light grows stronger, filtering through the trees as the rangers remain by the female bear's side. The cubs continue to nudge at their mother's motionless body, their small cries faint but persistent. Elias steps away briefly, crouching low to the ground, his eyes scanning the earth. The stillness of the valley holds its breath, the weight of the moment thickening in the cool morning air. His partner joins him, kneeling beside him to examine the soil. The ground around them is soft, damp from the night's chill. The tracks are clear, though partially blurred by the damp earth. Elias traces his finger gently along the edges, his gaze narrowing as he studies the markings. The claw marks are deep and unmistakable. They are not the marks of a lone animal. There is evidence of movement, of something that had circled around the bear's position. Elias speaks quietly, the tension in his voice barely detectable. "Wolves. They've been around." His partner nods, scanning the marks more closely. The tracks are fresh, but the animals had kept their distance, never approaching too closely to the bear or her cubs. The disturbance in the soil suggests they had been pacing, moving around the perimeter, hesitant to cross into the bear's immediate space. There is a clear difference in the way the marks are arranged. The deep scratches in the earth indicate that the wolves had circled, as though they had been testing the bear's resolve, measuring the strength of her presence. But they had never moved closer, never pushed past the point where her scent was most potent. Elias stands slowly, his body tense with a growing realization. The mother bear's scent had acted as a barrier, a warning, keeping the wolves from approaching too near. There is no question now. The mother bear had protected her cubs not only from the dangers of the wild but also from predators that could have torn them apart in the night. The cubs, unaware of the true nature of the danger, continue their soft whimpers as they press against their mother's side. Their small bodies tremble slightly, instinctively seeking her warmth, but it is not enough to wake her. The rangers remain still, watching, waiting. Elias knows that the bear's struggle hasn't been only against exhaustion or injury. It's been against the very forces of nature itself, forces that could have taken her life and her cubs long before morning arrived. Elias turns to his partner, his voice low but steady. She's kept them safe. She's kept them alive through the night. His partner, equally quiet, meets his eyes with a shared understanding. The risk is still present. If the mother cannot regain her strength, the cubs will be left vulnerable, exposed. They are too young to defend themselves and too small to survive on their own in the wild. Without her protection, they stand little chance. Elias takes a slow, deliberate breath, his hand brushing through the soil beside him. The wolves are no longer in sight, but the evidence of their presence remains. The tracks tell the story of a night spent circling, watching, and waiting for the right moment. But that moment never came. The bear, though still fragile, had held them at bay with nothing more than her scent, her presence, and the unyielding force of her will. Her body, now broken and exhausted, had stood strong enough to fend off the wolves, ensuring that her cubs would survive the night. The silence grows again. The only sound now the soft whimper of the cubs as they continue to nudge their mother, their tiny bodies pressing closer to her. The rangers watch them carefully, understanding the weight of the moment. There's no time to waste. If the mother bear does not recover soon, the wolves may not be the only danger they face. The tracks in the dirt speak to a night of peril, of an animal fight for survival that went unnoticed by most. But not by the rangers, who understand what it takes to protect life in the wild. And as the cubs huddle against their mother, the rangers remain close, ready to step in should they be needed, but always respecting the boundaries that the bear has set for herself and her cubs. The sun rises higher in the sky, casting a warmer glow across the valley, but the mother bear remains motionless, her body barely moving. The cubs, still nestled against her, continue their quiet restlessness, pressing closer to her side, seeking warmth and comfort. Elias watches them for a moment, feeling the weight of the hours that have passed. Every minute brings the cubs closer to a reality they may not survive without their mother. The tension in the air thickens, as the bear's slow, shallow breaths seem to grow weaker with each passing moment. Elias knows this is the crucial time, and if she does not regain her strength soon, the cubs will be left without the protection they need. Then a slight shift, a subtle movement in the mother's body. Her shoulder trembles briefly and a rough, uneven breath escapes her, echoing in the stillness around them. Elias's eyes narrow as he watches the slight rise and fall of her chest, each breath a struggle, each one smaller than the last. Her fur, damp with dew, clings to her body like a heavy weight, and her legs, once strong and unyielding, now appear limp and weak beneath her. Elias takes a cautious step forward, his gaze focused on the mother bear. He can now see it clearly, the wound on her shoulder. The thick, matted fur is torn, revealing a deep gash, still oozing dark blood. It's a wound from something sharp, something that has cut into her flesh. The evidence of the fight from the night before is visible now, a testament to the battle she fought in silence. The rangers had suspected the wound was there, but now they can see the toll it has taken. The bear had held her ground, despite the pain, despite the exhaustion. And now her strength is fading. The cubs shift again, sensing something is wrong. One of them whimpers softly, its small body curling tighter against its mother's side, trying to nuzzle for warmth. The other cub presses its nose gently against the wound, as if it can somehow comfort its mother, but the action is more instinct than understanding. Elias steps back, his heart heavy with the reality of the situation. If she does not recover, if her body does not heal enough to rise again, the cubs will be left alone in this harsh world, vulnerable to whatever dangers lie ahead. The rangers stand in silence, watching, waiting. Elias remains still, his fingers brushing the edge of his binoculars. He knows there is little time. If the mother cannot get to her feet, the rangers will have to make a decision. The cubs cannot remain alone. But even as the thought crosses his mind, he knows they will give her every chance, every moment they can, to recover on her own. They will not intervene unless absolutely necessary. Another breath. This one is slower than the last, but it's steady enough to give a fleeting sense of hope. Elias looks to his partner, who watches intently, his own concerns mirrored in the tight set of his jaw. The wind rustles through the trees, the quiet sound of nature surrounding them, but it feels distant. The stakes are clear. If the mother cannot recover, the cubs will be left to fend for themselves. But Elias does not want to give up yet, not while there is still a chance. The bear shifts again, but this time her movement is deliberate and slow. She lifts her head slightly, her eyes flicking open just enough to acknowledge her cubs. The cubs, sensing the change, nudge her gently, their small bodies pressing against hers. She does not respond to them right away, but her eyes are no longer closed. There's a spark of awareness, of life, though it is faint. The rangers remain silent, their movements slow and measured. They know they cannot rush this. The mother bear is in pain, and they cannot force her to do anything. But the soft sound of her breathing, now deeper and more consistent, fills them with a quiet hope. She is not done yet. She has fought, and though her strength is fading, she is still holding on. The moment is delicate. If the mother cannot regain her strength soon, the rangers will have to make a decision for the cubs. But for now, they wait, watching, respecting the struggle of the bear as she continues to fight her silent battle. The wind picks up again, carrying the scent of pine and earth through the valley, but the rangers remain in place, unwilling to break the stillness. There is nothing more they can do but hope. As the mother bear exhales again, the cubs nudge her once more, their tiny cries filling the air. And for a moment, the valley seems to hold its breath, waiting for the next sign of life. The morning light settles deeper into the valley as the rangers remain still, their presence barely noticeable in the quiet expanse. Elias kneels several yards away from the female bear, his breath slow and even. He watches closely, waiting for the smallest sign that she is ready to recover, ready to rise. The cubs remain close, their small bodies pressed against their mother's side, seeking warmth and comfort in the stillness. One of them lets out a soft whimper, a sound of distress. But the mother's body doesn't move in response. Her chest rises and falls, but the rhythm is shallow and slow. Elias knows the situation is delicate. If they move too quickly, if they get too close, they might startle her, and the moment of recovery might slip away. He speaks softly, almost to himself, the words a whisper in the silence. She's still with them. His voice is steady, yet filled with the awareness of how fragile this moment is. His partner, standing a few steps behind, nods and moves to the side, setting down a small bowl of water a few feet away from the bear. The act is simple, but it carries its own quiet urgency. The water will help, though it may be too early to see if the bear can drink. For now, the rangers remain where they are, far enough to avoid disturbing the fragile equilibrium between the mother and her cubs, yet close enough to respond if the situation changes. The cubs continue to nudge their mother, pressing tighter against her with each passing moment, their tiny bodies trembling slightly. They sense the pain in their mother's stillness, the uncertainty in the air. Their movements are soft and instinctual, but there's no sign of panic. They have not yet understood the severity of the situation. Elias's eyes flicker between the cubs and the mother. He knows that their survival depends on her. If she does not regain strength soon, if her wound is too much for her body to handle, the cubs will be left alone. The rangers would step in, but they cannot replace what she gives them. As Elias remains crouched, watching, there's a subtle shift in the air. The wind moves through the valley again, carrying the faint scent of pine and earth. It's quiet here, in the way that only places untouched by the rush of human life can be. The rustling of leaves is almost imperceptible. Elias feels a connection to the stillness, the pause in time. The risk is always present. If the bear does not recover, the cubs will have no protector. But the rangers will not rush. They cannot afford to. They must give her space to find her way back, even if it means waiting longer than they wish. The cubs, still pressed against their mother, begin to nuzzle her more insistently, their soft noses brushing the wound on her shoulder. The mother's body trembles slightly, but she does not react, not in any way that suggests she is waking fully. Elias holds his breath for a moment, watching her closely. Her chest rises again, faintly, and then another breath, shallow but consistent. The signs are faint. But they are there. She is still fighting, still holding on. One of the cubs looks up, its tiny face glistening with dew, its gaze briefly meeting Elias's. The rangers do not move, not yet, but the cub's brief acknowledgement seems to offer some comfort. It is as if the small animal knows that the humans are not here to harm, but to help, to hold the space between them and the wilderness that may be too much for them to survive. The cub nudges its mother again, a quiet cry escaping its throat, and for the first time in what feels like hours, Elias notices a subtle change in the mother bear's posture. She shifts her body ever so slightly, enough for the cubs to press closer against her, their small, confused cries mingling in the air. Elias's partner glances at him, but there is no need for words. They are not there to interfere. The rangers have done what they can. The rest is in the hands of the bear. The space between the humans and the animals is thick with the weight of unspoken understanding. If the mother can recover, she will. If she cannot, the rangers will have to make their next decision. But for now, they remain still, the quiet intervention offering the barest support. The cubs settle again against their mother's side, their movement now slower, more subdued. The rangers watch them, knowing that the risk remains high. They will not move closer, they will wait. The waiting, the not knowing, stretches out. But this is part of the cycle of life in the wild. The rangers, calm and respectful, allow the mother bear and her cubs the space they need. The moment is still, and the outcome uncertain. For now, it is enough that they are here, holding the space, offering what little help they can without disturbing the delicate balance. The waiting continues, and with it, the quiet hope that the bear will find her strength once again. The morning light is now full, but the valley remains quiet, save for the soft rustle of the wind through the trees and the distant calls of birds. The rangers stand back, watching the scene unfold, the air thick with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. The mother bear still lies motionless, but her eyes are open now, barely, her gaze shifting occasionally. She is aware, though too weak to move. Her body remains still, her breathing shallow, but it is steady. The cubs, sensing their mother's weakened state, continue to nuzzle her side, pressing close to her, seeking warmth and comfort in the cool morning. One of the cubs, more curious than the other, begins to shift away from its mother. It takes small, hesitant steps, its tiny body wobbling as it moves toward the bowl of water that the rangers had placed a short distance away. The cub's movements are cautious and unsure as it eyes the bowl. There is a brief pause before the cub steps closer, its small tongue darting out to lap at the edge of the water. The sound of its gentle lapping fills the quiet air, a stark contrast to the stillness that surrounds them. The cub's thirst is clear, its instinct to drink outweighing any uncertainty. As it drinks, its small body trembles slightly, a soft whimper escaping its throat. Elias watches the cub closely. This simple act, this small, tentative movement, is the first sign of independence the cub has shown since they arrived. It is a sign that, despite the circumstances, despite the weakened state of the mother, the family is still holding on. The cub looks up briefly, its eyes meeting the ranger's gaze for the briefest moment, and, for a second, Elias wonders if it knows they are there to help, that they are part of its world now, even if only for a moment. The mother bear does not move, but her eyes shift slightly toward the cub. She watches, and in that quiet stillness, there is something almost imperceptible, a flicker of recognition. She knows her cub is drinking, and though she cannot rise, she seems to take comfort in the act. She is aware, even if her body is not able to respond in the way it once could. Her gaze lingers on the cub for a moment longer before it drifts back to the ground. She is still tethered to the world around her, still tethered to her cubs. The rangers can see it in her eyes. She has not given up. Not yet. The other cub, sensing its sibling's movement, begins to stir. It slowly follows, its small feet pressing into the soft earth as it joins the first cub by the bowl. It, too, dips its head toward the water, taking a small drink. The two cubs are close now, their small bodies brushing against each other as they drink from the same bowl. Elias feels a quiet relief, the scene before him a fragile but hopeful moment. The cubs are still young, too young to be on their own, but they are learning, adapting. They are beginning to take small steps toward survival, even in the absence of their mother's strength. For the rangers, this is a sign. The family is not ready to be abandoned yet. Elias knows that the next few hours will be critical. The mother bear has shown signs of awareness, of life. If she can find the strength to rise, the cubs will have a chance. If she cannot, the rangers will have to make a choice, but for now, they wait, giving her the space she needs. The quiet act of the cubs drinking from the bowl is enough for now. It is a moment of hope, a sign that, despite the odds, they are still holding on to each other. The cubs finish drinking and return to their mother's side, their small bodies curling up against her, seeking the warmth and protection only she can give. Elias watches them for a moment, his gaze lingering on the scene. The risk remains. If the mother does not regain her strength, the cubs will be left vulnerable. But for now, they are still together, still trying to survive. The rangers take one last look at the mother bear before they step back, giving the family more space. The valley remains still, but there is a quiet strength in the air. The family is not ready to be separated. Not yet. And as the rangers continue to watch, they know that there is still time to hope. The sun climbs higher, and the warmth begins to seep into the valley, carrying with it a shift in the air. For hours, the valley had been shrouded in a heavy stillness, but now, with the light growing stronger, the world begins to stir. The rangers stay close, their movements slow and deliberate as they continue to observe the mother bear. Her eyes are half-lidded, her breathing still labored, but there is a quiet strength in the way her chest rises and falls. The cubs remain beside her, their small bodies pressed against her side, but even they are beginning to move more, restless and anxious. Then, a slight movement. At first, it is barely noticeable. But the rangers hold their breath, watching closely. The mother bear shifts her weight slightly, her muscles trembling as she raises her head. Her shoulders are stiff, and her gaze remains unfocused, but she is moving. It is slow and deliberate, each movement a struggle, but she is still choosing to act. With a deep, shuddering breath, she begins to rise, her legs shaking with the effort. The wound on her shoulder glistens in the early light. The blood that once stained her fur is now partially dried, leaving a faint trail on the earth beneath her. The rangers can see the pain in her movements, but there is no hesitation. She is choosing to stand, to move forward. The cubs, sensing the change, shift closer to her side, their small faces lifted in her direction. They watch her, their instincts guiding them to stay close. As she rises to 3 legs, her remaining strength holding her upright, she nudges both cubs gently, guiding them forward with a soft nudge of her snout. Her movements are slow but steady as she leads them toward the slope that rises gently from the valley floor. The cubs follow, hesitant but trusting, staying close to her. The rangers observe from a distance, understanding what is happening. She is not surrendering. She is not giving up. She is choosing to move, despite the pain, despite the exhaustion. Elias watches the scene unfold, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what is at stake. The mother bear's decision is clear. She is choosing to keep going, to guide her cubs toward safety, even though she is barely able to stand. The rangers had feared that she would not make it through the night, but now, with each slow step, they realize that her will to protect her cubs is stronger than the pain she endures. The rangers remain still, allowing the bear and her cubs the space they need, but they know the risks are not over. If the mother bear cannot continue, if the pain becomes too much for her, the cubs will be left vulnerable. The mother bear moves carefully, her body swaying slightly as she takes each step. Her cubs stay close, their small forms a contrast to her towering presence, but they follow her without hesitation. The rangers take a step back, understanding that they must give her the time she needs to lead her cubs to safety. They cannot intervene now. This is her choice. This is her fight. With each step up the slope, the bear's body seems to gain a little more strength, though she is clearly struggling. The cubs keep pace, their small legs working harder to follow their mother's lead. The rangers watch in silence, the weight of the moment heavy in the stillness of the valley. The mother bear is not out of danger yet, but for the first time in hours, there's a glimmer of hope. Her decision to rise, to move, to guide her cubs is an act of determination, one that speaks of the bond between them, of a mother's will to protect her young even in the face of overwhelming odds. As they ascend the slope, the cubs glance up at her occasionally, their small faces soft with the trust they place in her. The mother bear doesn't look back at them, but her body remains steady, each step a testament to her strength. The rangers do not move any closer, allowing her to lead her cubs at her own pace. They understand that this moment belongs to her. The decision is hers alone to make. By the time the trio reaches the top of the slope, the sun has fully risen, casting a golden light over the valley. The mother bear pauses for a moment, her body trembling with the exertion, but she does not falter. She is still standing. She is still moving forward, and for the rangers, that is enough. They remain where they are, watching quietly, knowing that the family is still intact, still fighting, still choosing to survive. The sun has risen fully now, casting a golden glow over the valley as the day begins to settle into its rhythms. The bear family, though still fragile, moves with a quiet determination. their figures growing smaller against the backdrop of the vast landscape. The rangers remain where they are, standing at a distance, their eyes fixed on the mother bear as she guides her cubs toward the edge of the timberline. The journey up the slope had been slow, each step a testament to the bear's unwavering strength despite the pain she endures. The cubs, now more confident, stay close to her side, their small bodies moving in unison with hers. They press forward, their tiny feet kicking up dust as they make their way toward the safety of the trees. As the family disappears into the cover of the woods, the rangers remain still, watching in silence. The trees seem to swallow them whole, the dense canopy closing behind them like a protective embrace. The rangers feel the weight of the moment, the quiet understanding that the bear has made it. She has led her cubs through the worst of it, fighting off predators and the elements, all while struggling against the injuries that threaten to take her life. The tracks in the dirt are the only evidence left of their presence, the claw marks deep in the earth, a testament to the fierce protection the mother had offered her cubs. Elias stands quietly, his hand resting lightly on his binoculars. His partner, beside him, says nothing. There is no need for words. The truth is clear now. The bear had held off the wolves all through the night, fighting to protect her cubs, bleeding but unbroken. She had made it through the darkest hours, giving her cubs the chance they needed to survive, even if she herself was close to exhaustion. The rangers had witnessed a rare moment of strength, a mother's fierce will to protect her young against all odds. The cubs' tiny forms vanish into the trees, their small figures lost to the shelter of the woods. The rangers watch, their hearts heavy but full of quiet respect. They had come into this valley unsure of what they would find, unsure of whether the mother bear and her cubs would make it. Now they have their answer. The family is still intact. The cubs will survive. And though the bear's journey is far from over, she has done what she needed to do to ensure that her cubs will have another chance at life. The wind stirs softly through the branches above, the quiet rustling of leaves the only sound as the valley settles back into its rhythm. The rangers remain in place for a moment longer, humbled by what they have witnessed. The bears are no longer visible, but the memory of their struggle, of the mother's fight, lingers in the air. The rangers know that this moment, this quiet victory, will stay with them. They will carry it with them as they continue their work, knowing that sometimes the smallest actions, the gentlest choices, are the most profound. As the last of the cubs disappears from view, Elias slowly lowers his binoculars. His partner takes a deep breath beside him, his hand resting briefly on Elias's shoulder. There is no need to speak. The truth is clear. The mother bear, despite all that had been stacked against her, had done what she needed to do. She had fought for her cubs, had held them close through the darkness, and had given them the gift of another morning. And for the rangers, that quiet truth is enough. They turn and begin their walk back, the wind carrying the scent of pine and earth as the valley quietly returns to its timeless rhythms.